You won't see in this fight, however.
You talk way too much, bro. You talk way too much.
Yeah! I'm telling you, I can back it up.
Terence Crawford just set the internet on fire with a training video so sharp and explosive, it looked like a man carrying a score to settle and a target to destroy. Not just any target, Canelo Alvarez, the Mexican juggernaut who has bulldozed world champions like they were tune-ups. But this time, the energy feels different. Crawford isn't just polishing his craft, he's transforming it into a weapon built for a bigger, stronger, and far more dangerous adversary, and somewhere in the middle of the hype, Errol Spence Jr. saw it. Yes, that Errol Spence, the former unified welterweight king who once traded belts and pride with Crawford under the brightest lights, and who knows firsthand what happens when Bud's quiet focus morphs into cold violence. His reaction. Subtle but telling, a flicker of surprise, maybe disbelief, and just enough unease to get fans talking. Because if this Crawford had shown up against Spence, the fight might have ended even faster. And if this Crawford walks into the ring against Canelo, the pound-for-pound debate might not survive the night. The clip opens with Crawford in full fight mode. No smiles. No banter. Just a slow, deliberate warm-up before detonating combinations that crack against the heavy bag like gunfire. His jab, sharper than ever, pops with surgical precision, the kind designed to blind Canelo before the real punishment lands. Then come the body shots, short, violent hooks that land with a thud like they're tearing through ribs. You can almost feel the sparring partners in the room instinctively edging backward. But it's not just the power that's making waves, it's the pace. Crawford's rhythm is relentless, sliding in and out with the fluidity of a welterweight while carrying the extra muscle of a super middleweight. Between flurries, his on-resistance bands, shadowboxing with explosive pivots, drilling angles that could have him circling Canelo before the champ even realizes he's in a trap. Physically, the transformation is striking. Crawford's shoulders and chest are thicker, his frame denser, but he hasn't sacrificed the whip-like elasticity that makes his counters lethal. Every added pound looks functional, weaponized. And the style he's sharpening isn't just meant to adjust to Canelo's approach. It's meant to suffocate it. This isn't the same Bud who dissected Spence with patient precision. This is a predator, faster than he should be, stronger than he needs to be, and clearly preparing for a war of attrition that could crack even boxing's most durable champion. When the footage hit social media, it didn't take long for Spence to catch it. Cameras were rolling as he watched, mid-conversation, yes narrowing, head tilting slightly, as if replaying their fight in his mind. Then came the half-smirk. Not the swaggering grin he wore before their bout, but something more layered. He looks sharp, he said quietly, but the way he leaned back in his chair told its own story. Spence knows that look in Crawford's eyes, cold, calculated, and impossible to shake once it's locked on you. The difference now. Crawford's carrying more size and more power, and is aiming it at a man even more dangerous than Spence ever was. Some fans took Spence's reaction as respect. Others read it as recognition, maybe even a flicker of unease. Because if this is what Crawford looks like just weeks out from facing Canelo Alvarez, Spence might be realizing what the rest of the boxing world is starting to suspect. His loss wasn't the end of his reign, it's just the first chapter in Terence Crawford's conquest of yet another division.
You know, I was trying to block the shots he was throwing and come back with shots, but I mean, nothing really was going through my mind.
The last time the world saw Terence Crawford in the ring, he delivered one of the most clinical dismantlings in modern boxing history, dismantling Errol Spence with an ease that left even veteran analysts stunned. But in his latest training footage, it's clear Crawford isn't just rolling out the same blueprint. He's rewriting it. Against Spence, his game was built on patience and precision, luring mistakes, setting traps, and punishing openings with sniper-like accuracy. This time, there's a rawer, meaner edge. His hands are faster, yet every punch carries more weight. He's still switching stances, but now those transitions are sharper, flowing straight into combinations instead of merely throwing off his opponent's timing. The conditioning tells its own story. For Spence, Crawford trained to outlast a fellow welterweight. For Canelo, his training for collision power. Every drill, plyometrics, rotational core work, and resistance-loaded footwork screams explosiveness. He's preparing for a man who won't back up, a fighter who has spent years breaking bigger men down. This isn't just a welterweight stepping up in size. It's a hybrid, the speed and timing of a 147-pounder fused with the frame and power of a true super middleweight. On paper, Canelo Alvarez is supposed to be the mountain Crawford can't climb, a natural at the weight, granite-chinned, thunder-fisted, and a master at bullying opponents into submission. Most fighters moving up 2 divisions carry that extra weight like luggage, slowing them down, dulling their snap, and draining their gas tank. Crawford? He looks dangerous at the new weight. The speed is intact, the timing is razor-sharp, but now there's a thudding power behind every shot, the kind that makes you imagine what would happen if one of those counters found Canelo's chin mid-exchange, and it's not just the power. It's the movement, the angles, the in-and-out footwork, the sudden stance switches in side combinations. The exact tools that once frustrated Canelo against fighters like Dmitry Bivol. For Crawford, this isn't just another fight. It's a shot at rewriting pound-for-pound history in real time. Beat Canelo, and you've toppled one of the sport's most dominant champions across 3 decades. For Canelo, the stakes are just as steep. Lose here, and you're no longer the immovable force. You're the man who got outboxed by someone moving up in weight. And for Errol Spence, watching this new version of Crawford take shape is like seeing the man who beat you evolve into something even more dangerous. A reminder that what you faced in that ring might not have been the peak of Terence Crawford, just the beginning.
The right hand. They thought overlap was more too predictable when he tried to throw that. They want to make Canelo thinking about that right hand for most of this fight.
The last time Terence Crawford stepped into the ring, he delivered one of the most clinical dismantlings modern boxing has ever seen, taking apart Errol Spence with a level of ease that left even seasoned analysts stunned. But in this latest training footage, it's clear Crawford isn't simply recycling the same formula. He's reinventing it. Against Spence, his strategy was built on patience and precision, drawing out mistakes, setting traps, and punishing openings with sniper-like accuracy. Now, there's a rawer, more aggressive edge. His hands are faster, but his punches land heavier. He's still switching stances, but now the transitions are razor-sharp, flowing seamlessly into combinations instead of just throwing off his opponent's timing. His conditioning tells its own story. For Spence, it was about endurance, outlasting a fellow welterweight. For Canelo, it's about collision power. Every drill, from plyometrics to rotational core work to resistance-based footwork, is feeding into explosiveness, preparing him to stand his ground against an opponent who refuses to back up. This is the evolution of a fighter who refuses to be satisfied with pound-for-pound supremacy at his natural weight. Crawford is building a new version of himself, a hybrid that blends the speed of a welterweight with the frame and power of a true super middleweight. For Canelo, that means he's not just facing a man moving up in size, he's facing a man leveling up in danger. Even with all eyes shifting toward Canelo, the shadow of Errol Spence still hangs over this fight. Their rivalry was too personal, too definitive, to vanish in one night. Crawford's dominant win didn't just settle the welterweight debate, it closed the book entirely. But now, with Crawford chasing an even bigger prize, every clip of his training, every flash of power, every display of precision, reopens old wounds. Spence's reaction to the footage wasn't just about Canelo. It was about him. In boxing, pride doesn't retire after a loss. When you've shared a ring with someone, you measure yourself against their every move. If Crawford beats Canelo, the narrative changes again, not just about Crawford's greatness, but about what it says regarding the man he dismantled last summer. And while Spence talks about his own comeback, possibly at a higher weight, Crawford's trajectory is pulling further and further away. Every punch in the gym now isn't only aimed at Canelo, it's another reminder to Spence, and the world, that Bud is operating on a level few can touch. The irony is that even as Crawford prepares for the biggest challenge of his career, the Spence rivalry still fuels the hype. Fans argue about a rematch. Analysts still bring up their first fight when discussing Crawford's legacy. And Spence, whether he admits it or not, is still part of the story, because the man he once saw as just another opponent is now knocking on the door of something far greater. The moment Crawford's training clip went public, social media lit up. On Twitter, highlight accounts broke down his combinations frame by frame, with captions like, "This is not normal power for a man coming up 2 weight classes. Canelo better bring more than head movement for this one." Fans debated whether Crawford's foot speed and precision could neutralize Canelo's size advantage, or whether the Mexican superstar's body shots would slow Bud down in the later rounds. Over on Instagram, fighters and trainers weighed in. Some praised the sharpness of Crawford's stance switches, noting how they disguised incoming power shots. Others warned that bag work and mitt drills are one thing, but facing Canelo under the lights is another. Former champions offered cautious respect, acknowledging Crawford's elite skill set but warning he'd need to be flawless to survive Canelo's mid-round pressure. Even MMA fighters chimed in, impressed by his fluidity, while reminding their audiences that power tends to carry better than speed when jumping divisions. And from the looks of it, Crawford's got both, in dangerous supply. For fans who have followed him since the Spence fight, reactions split between excitement and disbelief. Excitement because Crawford looks faster, stronger, and meaner than ever. Disbelief because, if this version of Crawford had existed 6 months ago, the Spence fight might have ended before the championship rounds. And that single thought is enough to keep Errol Spence's name trending every time new footage drops.